Good morning, everybody. We welcome Gurvinder for this conversation on behalf of the Departments of English and Punjabi. Yesterday, in his lecture, he spoke about the intertwining of literature, art, and cinema. That is, I think, all the more reason that this department, these two departments should be hosting him. Overall, I see him as an artist for whom writing and painting and photography and filmmaking are components of a larger art. Central to his quest as a filmmaker has been his journey to Punjabi. He comes via English and Hindi and arrives in Punjabi, and that is where he finally chooses to make his creative nest. But for Punjabi, what he said yesterday is, I think, a lesson for everybody who's committed to our mother tongue. That it is not necessary to take your mother tongue as a shell into which you retreat and then improve what you do perfectly good. He has sought the universal in Punjabi, turned Punjabi into a medium for a universal human expression. And that, I think, is what we all need to aspire for. A very difficult aspiration to achieve, but that is what we need in case we have in mind a future for Punjabi in the global space. So, with these introductory remarks, I turn to the conversation. At the end of it, we'll have a brief question and answer session in which you can talk to him about his film and his journey. Gurvinder Singh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Rajesh. It's always a pleasure to be first of all talking to you, and then now it's even more it's wonderful that we are sharing a conversation with students and the world can see through its recording. So thank you for inviting me for this conversation, and to the university for inviting me to the seminar and hosting a screening, first ever physical screening of Patiala.
Yes, we started planning this sometime in the middle of the last year. The first point of discussion was in November, and finally in March, and thankfully he's here. So, welcome. I would like to know from you, think about your trajectory as a filmmaker, because I have seen your Humne Kode Da Daan also, and some short movies that you have shared. I have seen silences, darkness and light, and peace from a spectator's point of view, evolving through the films that you are making. Would you like to say something about the trajectory of your filmmaking?
What you said initially, that you are coming from not belonging to Punjab and coming to Punjab and making Punjabi films, and something which I spoke about in yesterday's lecture also, that I would like to say that cinema is a medium which transcends language. It's an international medium. It's a medium which expresses through technology. So, and the technology is changing, but the soul of filmmaking, which is image, sound, and carried through the medium of time, that does not change, irrespective of the technology might keep evolving. Today we are using digital cameras. There was a time when we were using film cameras, and before that, film cameras were very big and confined to studios. So we are now, highly mobile, and we can go and make films easily in any corner of the world. So cinema is an international art form. Whatever a student is learning in New York, the same student is learning in Pune Film Institute. So it's the grammar, if you can call it a grammar, is common, it's universal. But cinema, what we make, what we tell in cinema, the stories we tell in cinema are highly rooted. They are ethnographic, if I can use the word. So they are rooted in very specific local cultures, local idioms, local dialects, local issues. And through that, the cinema arrives at a kind of a, from the universal, it comes down to, not I will say, it's a mix of the universal with the highly local. So that's a very interesting, possibility. Which so I'm making films in Punjabi, and through the technological medium of cinema, the Punjabi gets carried to any part of the world. So anybody in any corner of the world, can watch these films, of course, with the help of subtitles. But what happens is they get to hear the language. They get to they get a sense, they get an experience of the land, its people, their struggle, and all the other complexities that a film or its story can carry. Literature, on the other hand, you don't expect everybody to learn Punjabi. So literature will only be carried through the medium of translation. Somebody in Italy might read Punjabi literature, but then he or she will be reading it in that in translation. So they don't. So then the imaginary has to work. Then they have to imagine a Punjab, and here the Punjab is presented. So that's why it's a for me, getting the journey had to start with an ethnographic kind of exploration of Punjab. So just reading books about Punjab or just reading novels, knowing stories would have been kind of, would have only created an imaginary. It needed a kind of a struggle, it needed a kind of a tactile feel of the space, people, language, dialects, food, everything, music, folklore. And that's what I did after I graduated from the Film Institute. Of course, there was this confusion that what is my mother tongue? Growing up in Delhi and speaking a mix of Hindi and Punjabi. And then when I go to Pune, I see my classmates, somebody is from Bengal, somebody is from Kerala, and somebody is from Maharashtra, and they have no such confusion. They are convinced, they are going to make the Bengali students wanted to make Bengali films. Even in the Film Institute, they wanted to make Bengali films. They will not make any language films. So that was the only language they were comfortable with, and both in speaking and writing, and so they were not. For me, that was like I was comfortable in writing English. I could speak Hindi, a bit of Punjabi. So, and then it was absurd to even think of making films in English. So I felt that I am starting at like kind of a zero. I know no language in which I have to make my films. So yes, so then after the institute there was this journey. I got some grants and I was able to travel through Punjab, documenting the folklore, the traditions of storytelling, the oral ballads, the qissas, and that brought me kind of into a direct contact with people, the language, the many complexities of the language itself, the dialects, and it made me confront my own inadequacies in what I thought was the language, the Punjabi language itself. So it's been a slow journey, and so that's why a lot of people ask why adaptations, because the adaptations, what I lack as a kind of a insider, I need an insider's view, an insider's perspective, to be able to create in a language which was universal. Without that insider perspective, which literally was gave me. I doubt if I would have been able to make films which has this kind of a sense of rootedness and sense of believability. For me, believability is the primary kind of a virtue, if I can say, of a creation. There are films which you believe that what you're watching actually happened, is happening, or could happen, and there are films which you see and you say, "Oh no, this is like not possible. This is like." So I don't think this like what when we say some film is good or some film is bad, we're not commenting. I don't see it as a comment on the craft of the film or on the morals of the film or on its creativity. I just see it as that people just did not connect. The people don't see that this could have happened. They don't think, they might feel that this character does not exist and what is being told us is like not, is false, in a way. So, for it to arrive at a certain believability, it needs to have a rootedness. It needs to have the experience of a mind like, say, writers like Patiala or who have lived, experienced, seen the struggle of the people from close, and understood the whole dynamics of the region, and so that's why it became very essential for me to ride my works on these interview works. But then I'm not saying that's the only way. Somebody else from Punjab can do it differently. Somebody else coming from outside can also do it differently. And now I feel, it's with a certain kind of with certain understanding which I have developed over the years of working here. It's been almost now 2 decades I've been working in Punjab. Now I live in Punjab. I live, let's say, on the border of Punjab, with Chandigarh. And now I meet people on a daily basis, get to hear things, get to talk more frequently in the language. The Punjabi countryside is very close to where I live, and also the cities. So it's now I feel I need a different kind of a journey will start for me if I were to make more films in the future.
See, the difficulty that I see you must have faced was that when it came to Malayali film, cinema or Bengali, they had a tradition of pattern cinema at the time when we entered this. But in terms of Punjabi cinema, I don't think there was any Punjabi pattern cinema, and that is where I think you are a pioneer. But I would like to know what kind of steps or leaps you have been able to make from Tanepur Dadan to Chauthipur to this Patiala. Do you see a significant shift in your own vision as a filmmaker and your creative craft? We'll be using both languages, Punjabi and English both, of course, wherever we are comfortable and you are comfortable.
I think any artist's vision kind of remains the same throughout. How it gets expressed, how it comes out might change. But I see a lot of filmmakers making trying to say the same thing again and again. And there's nothing wrong in that because it's coming from a necessity to say the same thing. It's about an obsession. Every artist, writer, every creative person has an obsession. And that obsession is linked to your own human nature. It's linked to my nature. When I make something, it's linked to my own nature. And it's an expression of my nature. If it were not an expression of my nature, it will not be truthful. If I try to make a film like you, or if I try to make a film like Saeed Mirza, it will not be my film, and you will say, this is popular. He's gone. So it has to be first of all. My teacher Manipal used to say, that I am more interested in your swabha. I don't want you to make films like me or anybody else. I want you to understand your swabha and understand that there is nothing like right or wrong in the swabha. उसमें सही और गलत कुछ नहीं है. उदेश कोई moral immoral नहीं है. उदेश कोई sacred profane नहीं है. उदेश कोई good bad नहीं है.
This idea of duality, he said, this idea of duality is it's something which our education system gives us. This idea of a common swabha that everybody should have a certain moral, everybody should, have a certain social kind of, commonality, that we need to behave like this, and this is good behavior and this is bad behavior. So he said this is the creation of society, and then through education it is kind of promoted. Otherwise, we are not born equal. There's nothing like equal. We are all different. Everybody is different from each other, and everybody has a unique nature, a unique way of looking at things, unique worldview. The education tries to turn it into a common worldview, which I also strongly felt as a student in school. It's up to everybody. Everybody wants to use it. So, how can everybody be good in physics, and how can everybody be good in how do you, I mean, there are 10 subjects, and how do you expect everybody to score 90% in every subject?
Yeah.
So it's for me, so yes, so so what I'm saying, what he would emphasize, understand yourself, and whatever you might be thinking is wrong with you, actually is your positive.
So since you invoked the name of your beloved teacher, a lot of people say that there is a profound influence of Manikal on your filmmaking. Where do you think you have been able to make significant departures from his form of the art?
Mani, I think, as a teacher, I understood, if you could say, the whole, the nature of the medium. He taught us the nature of the medium. He did not teach us that you have to go and make a certain kind of art cinema. He said, if you understand the nature of the medium, you can make anything. You can make popular cinema, you can make television, you can make advertising, you can make commercials. But he said the nature of the medium does not change. And the nature of the medium is that it's a carrier of image, it's a carrier of image with sound. The sound might be in sync with this image, sound might not be in sync with the image. But then what he importantly told us, that it's taught us, was how it differs from other visual mediums, that it's a medium which is carried in time. It's a temporal medium. It is not a visual medium. So it rid me of the notion, his teaching rid me of the notion that it's a visual medium. Like music, it's carried, it's a performance. It's a notes are carried over time. It's a combination of musical notes. So cinema is a combination of images and sounds, but expressed through time. So through him, I understood that how time and rhythm are the basic, I would say, is the basic nature of the medium. And that's where my way of looking at films and everything. So that I will not say that I was so much influenced by his films. I was more influenced by him as a teacher. In fact, when I saw Uski Roti for the first time, and this was the first film I'd seen, and I found it really strange. I was very restless, and I could not watch the film. So actually, it was a rainy day, and it was raining outside, and we were watching this film in the theater in the film institute. And 30 minutes into the film, I said, no, I can't take it. When I walked out, and it was rainy season, I used to love having bhutta. And we had a bhutta outside. I came back, and nothing had changed. So what kind of strange filmmaking is this?
I saw this film after I had seen your Nepal. And this is what I wanted to know. But when you said cinema, my perception is that time is not simply background. It is very much a character, especially in your first movie. Whereas in this movie, I don't see time as occupying that much of the temporal canvas. So what kind of change?
It is a different time. So there is so time, you know, it's because also because two films are very different in the times scape they cover. Annegoda is the story of a day, and this is the story of say a few years. You know? And then if you take the flashback into account, it's the story of let's say 15 years. So it needed a different kind of working, you know, it needed a different kind of expression where the perhaps the internal time, the inner time of the scenes did not matter, but the jump in time from scene to scene mattered. So it was more of you know, it was about working out that how one scene will progress into another. You know how when say when Modan proposes to Rildu that he wishes to have a family now, you know, and then what will happen? Do we show Rildu going around finding a wife for him, which the novel actually says? So here they just talk about, you know, the possibility of Modan finding a wife, and the next moment Modan is getting married. So it's a jump in time. So this is a different, it needed a different treatment, it needed a different approach to how to connect these life events of a character. So yes, and also, you know, for me it was not important that as a filmmaker, it's important also for me also to do different things and to try different things. And I don't see myself ever making a film like Annegoda again. And it might come back in some other strange way later, but this was a kind of, you know, for me, I call these three films a kind of a trilogy, though there is no direct link in them in terms of story or characters. But perhaps all three films are about the same theme, which I actually discovered now, you know, after having made Achani Raat. If you see the ending of Anne Ghodedada, Dayalo and Melu, Dayalo, restless, goes out in the night with a torch. With no particular aim, she's wandering. Unexpectedly. And Melu कहता है कि तू अच्छे की कर रही है निराश, तेरी जी काला पे यार, जी मेरा जी काला पै गया सी, पागल हो गई है तू, ऐसे वाले कोई बात नहीं, चल कर चल, देखो चौथी कूट, a bunch of strangers together in a guard's cabin in train, go through a kind of a stressful journey and reach the station. Before the station, they are asked by the guard, and they all get off the train and they all walk home. More than after his stupidity, in a drunk state, gets injured and says he wants to go home. It's a strange coincidence with all three films. The main protagonists, they are all going home.
Gurvinder, why?
So this desire, you know, that but all rest of the world, whatever we do, you know, we fight, there are conflicts and everything over issues, over caste, over land, over politics, religion. But the eventual desire is to have to, you know, home is what our, you know, is our nucleus, you know. मतलब eventually the eventual desire is home, then क्या मतलब है ये सब झगड़े land, जमीन और धर्म और you know, what is the point of all these?
So see, what does home mean? Now that is a very important question within your cinematic world, because even if it is a desire to return home, that home is a kind of retreat into a closed universe. It is like you have nowhere to go. Where do you go? You retreat into the womb of your mother. You just become a stone. So what kind of world is it in which characters
Yes,
have
of course.
go?
Home is the larger dimension. It's like has home is larger meaning.
So that where does Gurvinder Singh's moral vision and your vision, how do the two visions come together? Because I find Gurvinder Singh dealing very realistically with the question of modern sensibility in the face of hopelessness. The breakdown of social, economic, political situations, fine, but also a kind of loss of faith in meaning of a life which is projected into the future. It's like your protagonist finally stand against a wall. A wall, beat a home.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
No, I agree. I mean, so this is fascinating. I mean, this is what attracts me to his writing. The sense of hopelessness that one feels, that where does one go? The sense of anxiety, the angst, the restlessness, and this struggle that that you're trying to make a change, that there is hope that something is going to change, but then it comes apart. More than is rebuilding his life. He's rebuilt his life. He has a wife who comes with a child who finally gets accepted in the family. Now he has his own daughter, and when everything is working fine for him, he lets out his inner demons and challenges for no reason and something which he has been trying to avoid. It's like he's kind of finally creates a wall for himself again. Trying to conquer that wall, he ends up creating another wall. And this is a circle. This is a kind of endless circle. There is no dark. Actually, the novel is much darker. If you read the novel, I didn't want to make it that dark, and I wanted it to have more sense of hope than that sense of. So I actually could not. The darkness in the novel was too much for me to take. I said I will not be able to show this. Neither do I want to show this. So that's why when Jasdeep and I were working on the script, I felt that this is we need to create a different trajectory for Modin. And also for Sukhi. So it's not the Sukhi who comes and gets married and when she's pregnant, she's taken away by the brother and never returns. And she's sold off to some other man. For me, that was too dark, and I felt, but I almost felt that today, perhaps people might not even relate to that such a thing is possible. I don't know. I as a person could not relate to it. मैं जो नॉवल पढ़ा मैं नहीं रिलेट कर सकता कि एक औरत जिहड़ी प्रेग्नेंट हैगी है वो मतलब इन्नी नाइव हैगी है कि ਉਹਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਉਹਦਾ ਅਸਤਿਤਵ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਭਰਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਜਾਏ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਨਾ ਆਏ ਕਦੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਆਦਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਚ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ मतलब कि नहीं है कोई औरत अपने ਉੱਤੇ नहीं होने देगी ना मैं दिखा सकता
but you see in Gurvinder Singh's case I think it is part of his vision that he brings up the question of woman as a commodity. A very barbaric Punjabi society where you can buy and sell women, you turn that purchase of a woman into a wedding. Right? And if like he cannot go back and claim his wife, it is because he never married her actually. No. This is, I believe, a kind of ideological challenge that maybe you did not want to deal with and maybe you need a separate film for that. Because it is too dark, yes. But there is another thing. You change the very class character of the film. People in the novel are much poorer. It is like the audience is able to relate to a Punjabi family that has a jeep and a car and a tractor. What about people who hardly have a cycle and still they are living and there is a rivalry between them? And then factory side. I think Sajjal also fires a shot. But in your film, brothers don't try to kill each other. So is it that you are looking at the audience, what the audience can take, and as a result you are altering the text of the novel, or is it that since you deal with the sea, you make paintings, you write, you are also a photographer, still photographer and a filmmaker, is it that the filmmaker cannot take all of the novel?
I accepted that.
I mean, is it an impossibility as such, or is it simply a matter of choice and viewability?
It's a little bit pressure of viewability, but I don't think so. It was very odd. It was a completely. I mean, there was no pressure of. I mean, I was free to make the film I wanted to make, and if I wanted to show that level, that kind of darkness, I could have. And so I think it's my own. I did not see myself making such a dark film. And but perhaps then that's a change in me, and one has to accept that change and say, you want to be more kind of, you yourself want to be, I think, get rid of your own demons, and you want to move on, and you want to. I mean, if the films are, all the films are 3 films. Good writing is about fear. It's a fear of the unknown. It's fear of both the known and the unknown. It's about the anxiety and the restlessness in the characters and the sense of facing walls everywhere. So I simply accept that I could not have accepted that.
At the same time, one more thing I noticed, like there's a scene where the earth is experienced as a bride, his own bride, right? By Mohan. There are scenes where seasons change, and those scenes are brought out very brilliantly by Gurvinder. Then repeatedly the moon appears in the sky and it changes its character, and in one scene I think it's changing its character within 2 lines. It's changing its color. But in your film, which retains the title of the novel, I don't think the moon appears. Why is it that you have dispensed with the very central symbol of the novel and not dealt with the moon as a kind of presiding deity over the fate of these humans?
That is something I did in Annagudadan and we want to repeat it. Okay, it's as simple as that. I did whatever I did in Annagudadan, where the kind of the space and landscape is a kind of is an important character, an important backdrop, not just a backdrop, but an important but a character. I mean, character is not everything has a character. So everything is a character, not just people and what they speak and how they are, but a wall has a character, a street has a character, a village has a character. So here I kind of wanted to keep myself confined to the drama, and things like landscape, moon, these kind of things which witness us. These are the things which witness us actually. These are the things which witness the drama. In Annaguda, these things are witnessing the drama. They are witness to the events. And I felt it was not necessary. So as I said, yesterday also before the film, that the film is a kind of, is a kind of, the central characters of the film are inspired by the novel, but then it was a completely, the novel was kind of kept aside in the writing of this film. And then only what was cinematically necessary for this film was that.
I think that is where you have.
So it is a complete departure from this.
In terms of the pace, the cutting, the script, the way you have mixed the language of Patiala Singh and changes in that language, I think this is a film that would be hit on box office also if it would be released as a commercial film. I don't see any reason why the ordinary Punjabi film viewer would not love this film.
Yeah, I also don't see any reason, but still I don't know why am I not very hopeful.
Because I am an ordinary film viewer and I can say I'm very hopeful that a lot of people would enjoy this. Coming to the question of your other art forms. Why do you practice them, and do those practices impinge on your filmmaking in some way, like photography, still photography and painting and writing? I have seen your writing, and I would say that you are one of the fewest people writing on cinema today who write so well, and you have a control on syntax that is as good as your control on the syntax of
So,
I think this both have to do with rhythm. It's a control over rhythm. If I was a musician, I think I would be a good musician or a singer. Just that I never got down to even picking up an instrument ever in my life, or I perhaps never had a confidence that I could be a singer. A lot of actually, like let's say Manipali, he not only he practiced drupal actively for 20 for all his years since he started learning from his ustad, the daggers. Mani, I mean, I always felt, a very significant thing that Mani said, which is in the book on Flow and Space, which I translated in the conversation with him last week. He says, what is cinema? He says, cinema is painterly. He says, cinema is musical. Cinema is literary. Cinema is dramatic. Cinema is philosophical. He seems to leave everything out. What will remain with this? Now, this is like conundrum. It's a puzzle. ये सब सारा हैगा भी है, पर वो बनना भी नहीं चाहिए. A film should not become a painting. A film should not become music. A film should not become drama. It should not become theatre. It should not become a novel. Yeah. And so you need all this, but then the essential spirit which it will arrive at has to be cinema. So, for me, it was very important. I mean, I came to cinema later. I was already I was painting since as a child. And I wrote a lot of poetry before I actually even came to the film industry. And the real point it's like I never have had the courage to open those poems. They're lying in notebooks in some attic in the house, in some boxes. I never had the courage to read them again. Because they were a kind of, stream of what we call a stream of unconsciousness, I would say. I just kept writing sentences as I felt I should write sentences. I even myself did not know the meaning of sentences I was writing. So I think this courage that, you have to express and not know the meanings, not be aware, not worry about the meaning. This sense came very early on. Well, this thing of wanting to grapple with something which the meaning of which was not known. I think I was in like 8th or 9th class. Everybody used to listen to music, and I bought a cassette of Bhimsen Joshi. I was like, सुन के देखते हैं, हमने नाम सुना है बहुत करके, सुना नहीं कभी क्या होता है. And I heard Bhimsen Joshi for the first time as a student in 8th or 9th class. I was and I built a whole collection of Indian classical music in school. So that kind of this का समझ नहीं, मतलब somebody would come and my uncle would come, ये क्या सुन रहे हैं? ये कौन सुनता है? And then I started reading about ragas and their significance and a little bit of theory of Indian classical. Today I know nothing about the theory of Indian music, but there was so much feeling in it. There was so much deep experiences one could feel. रात का राग है, रात को सुना, सुबह का राग है, सुबह उठ के 6 बजे सुनता था क्योंकि सुबह का राग है. These were the kind of practices I was doing myself even before, long before I ever thought that I would make this. So this fear of meaning was never there. That something needs to have a meaning, and that I need to convey a message. Definitely not. Message was the least thing that bothered me. Message तो मतलब message क्या होता है? Experience ही message. So that's, I think against that background I could make a film like I did not care about of course it has a strong it's working on metaphors and not simple but experiences, metaphors. So everything has layers, which need to be deciphered. Things. But I think that all comes when you put things together. Cinema is what? Cinema is a collection of things. It's like your own museum of objects and sounds and images. Every time actually you're collecting and you're creating a museum. A film is a museum actually. You're bringing people, unrelated people, asking them to do certain things. There's a team which is helping you realize that vision. There's spaces, there are houses, there's fields, tractors, trolleys, bus, trains. Everything. So you're collecting things. No? In museum में क्या होता है? ये होता है ना. You collect things and you kind of thematically arrange them. You collect Greek art, you collect Egyptian art, you collect Gandhara art, you collect Indian images. You kind of arrange them and then it's not just, then you kind of, enter experiential. Try to create a space which takes you from like one experience to another experience. So in the film itself, you are going from one experience to another. That is what Ras is. So Rasa is like it's let's say in the Natya Shastra 9 rasas are given. So it's about kind of it's a museum of sounds, objects, people, and which are creating different rasas within a certain given time.
More important than us, maybe Tony, that you try to create because you are reaching out for a meaning that doesn't yet exist for you. Right? You talk about the courage in the face of something that doesn't have a ready-made meaning. I think this tendency that is very common today to do something that you already know is in fact nothing more than assumption. Like when you write something, you make a film, you take a picture, you're trying to know something that you didn't know before.
That's what Mani, coming back to Mani because, he was a wonderful teacher. I never talked about his films. Even Mani never talked about his films. He only talked about how a film, what is film and how it can be made. So what did they say?
Finding a meaning that doesn't get existed.
Sorry, I forgot what it was.
That is part of the way it works, That is how creative works. I think we can through the conversation now open.
Yes, but he would say that if your own creation does not surprise you,
yes, exactly.
Then it's meaning. Then it will not surprise anybody.
Well, it?
No, then it will not surprise anybody. If it is predetermined, it's like, you think no two trees are the same. They might be same species. But you plant two gulmohars side by side, and both the gulmohars will have a different shape. No two humans are, so nothing is, so it has to surprise, I discover my film, at the end of making of the film. When I see yesterday, I discovered my film, actually. Yesterday, I saw my film for the first time. I discovered it. I discovered something in the film. Part of my, I will see it a few times, then I will discover more things in the film. And if, and then a few years later, I might discover something else in that work. Like it's been, I think, many years since maybe it's, I think 5-6 साल हो गए ना मैंने अन्य गुड़ादान देखा शायद मेरा पता नहीं कल मेरा जी किया कि मैं अन्य गुड़ादान देखा कि मैं उत्थों आते था किस तरह मतलब की फर्क है की बदलाव है तो शायद मैं हम जाके अन्य गुड़ादान देखा
मैं तो है
तो आप 5-6 साल हो गए ना देखे
Yes, you see, finding meanings, change is one thing, but working in order to find meaning, working in order to make sense of something, I think that is what is the driving force.
It is the method, It's you find a way of working in which these things will come together without any predetermined meaning, and they will arrive at different meanings for different things. Also, the meaning and the experience does not have to be the same for everybody. It should be different. What you saw in the film, what he saw, what she saw, it's a different. It's like how they are, it's so much is related to their own life experiences, what they've seen, what they want to see, and how do they relate to the world. What are their aspirations? How they see at different things, how they look at gender, how they look at marriage, how they look at caste, how they look at family, So there are many things, so everybody will experience the film differently. And so this whole, what I'm basically saying is this demon, which is like, which is a part of our education system, to look at meaning in everything, to look at everything rationally, analyze it, dissect it, like, is something which I kind of never got into, So it's after doing something you can do it, and then I like others to do it. Why should I do it? So it's what you were saying about writing is, yes, I do like to write, and that's why I take every invitation to speak seriously and I write. Because also I'm for me it becomes like I do wish to publish. So for me, every lecture I write becomes a chapter in my book.